I created 100 clips in 100 minutes. One clip, 1 minute. The idea actually came from a designer named Eliot, who once challenged himself to design 1,000 logos in 1,000 minutes. One logo, 1 minute, no exceptions. Watching that challenge, I wondered what would happen if I tried the same idea with color grading. Not 1,000, but 100 grades in 100 minutes. One clip, 60 seconds. Working with a strict time limit removes overthinking. I simply follow my intuition and try to create a pleasing image within that time frame. That's what the video is about. A quick introduction. My name is Stefan Ringelschwandtner, colorist and DCTL developer based in Berlin. Since 2021, I've been running mononotes.com, where I build image processing tools used by professional colorists on productions for Netflix, Disney, BBC, Apple TV and more. Here a quick look at the project setup. I'm working in DaVinci Wide Gamut and using a simple node structure with 9 nodes. Node 1, a vignette. Node 2, lab DCTL from my look lab print DCTL pack. Node 3, color shift DCTL. Node 4, RGB Mixer. Node 5, printer lights DCTL. Node 6, look DCTL from my look lab print pack. Node 7, print DCTL from the same pack. And node 8 and 9, a balanced DCTL showing false color for skin tones, exposure and saturation. The process might look relaxed. In reality, it wasn't relaxed at all. 1 minute is extremely short when you're actually grading. The voiceover was recorded afterwards. It was far more stressful than it might appear. And yes, you're seeing this correctly, the video is almost 2.5 hours long. So this is a long ride. Grab a snack, get something to drink and enjoy the show. Let's begin. I enable print and look. I apply a LUT and will lower the LUT color and LUT luminosity. I check the balance DCTL and lowering the exposure and adjusting the temp. Then I'm adding subtractive saturation and lowering saturation, increase the exposure a bit, add contrast. I'm adjusting the temp slider and the tint slider. I'm looking at the balance again. Go back to print, lowering the shadows, and the time is up. Here's the Rex 09 version. This is the final grade. I like that the blacks are not crushed. I like the skin tones and the overall amount of exposure and contrast. Let's move on to the next one. I enable look and print. Go to the balance detail and look at the skin tones, the exposure, saturation, and the hue. I will lower the exposure, add subtractive saturation, lowering the saturation, add a bit of contrast, take a closer look at the skin tones, go to print and we'll lower the shadows and also adjust and also apply a LUT and we're lowering the green and blue shadows, add a bit of subtractive saturation. And here I'm trying to lowering the sky a bit and the time's up. Here's the Rex 09 version and this is the final grade. I'm really happy with the look. We have details in the sky. The skin tones looks very natural and warm and we have enough saturation in the image, enough details in the shadows. So on to the next grade. I enable look and print. Go to the lab, increase the contrast, increase the exposure, and adjust the temp and the tint slider a bit. And looking at the vector scope, and I'm lowering the shadows, add subtractive saturation, and adjust the standard saturation. And this already looks pretty good. Go back to exposure, apply a LUT, and we'll lower the luminosity and the color, and adjusting the blue shadows, and the time is up. This is the Rec. 7.9 version, and this is the final grade. Nothing is breaking the image. The neon signs are looking great. I'm happy with the contrast. I'm happy with the color. It looks good. On to the next grade. I enable look and print. I apply LUT and will lower the luminosity and also the color. Then I go to lab, increase the exposure and the contrast and tone compression, and adjust the bleach bypass slider, which I think fits the image very well. Increase the subtractive saturation, lowering the saturation slider. Go back to exposure, adjusting the highlights, looking at the balance DCTL, and adjusting the temp and the tint slider so the skin tones are closer to the skin tone line, and adjusting the exposure and the contrast, and the time is up. So here's the Rec. 7.9 version, and this is the final grade. I tried a bleach bypass look. We have blown out highlights, but that is fine. I think the yellow looks good. On to the next grade. I apply look and the print DCTL, go to lab, play around with the temp and the tint slider, go to printer lights and adjust the cyan, magenta and yellow slider and balance the image a bit. Go to contrast, add subtractive saturation, lowering saturation, go to print, apply a LUT, lowering the color and luminosity. Then go to print again, and I decided to push everything more towards magenta, and the time's up. So here's the Rec. 7.9 version, and this is my final look. It's all shifting more towards magenta, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that decision. It's fine. The contrast is fine. The colors are all right. Let's move on to the next grade. I enable look and print. Apply LUT. I will lower the luminosity and the color of the LUT. I'm going to the lab, increase subtractive saturation and adjusting the standard saturation, increase the contrast. And I'm looking at the image, that it is not getting too dark, and adjusting the temp and the tint. This already looks pretty good. Then I'm checking the skin tones and the exposure. Go to the waveform and looking at the shadows. I decide to lower the shadows a bit, and the time's up. So here's the Rec. 7.9 version, and this is the final grade. it is much darker. So I like the green in the shot, I like the skin tones, I like the contrast. In the shadows we still have enough information. On to the next shot. I will enable look and print, and I will apply a LUT, will lower the luminosity and switch to a warmer LUT, the D55, add subtractive saturation. I'm adjusting the exposure and looking at the image. Then I will increase the contrast or adjusting the shadows. Go back to print, lowering the blue shadow and adjusting the green shadow and the red shadow, and the time is up. So here's the Rec. 09 version, and this is the final grade, and I'm really happy with it. It's playful, it's fun, it feels like a summer movie. I like it. So let's move on to the next grade. I enable look and print. Then I will increase the vector scope, the trace. I go to lab and adjust the contrast and the temp and tint, trying to balance the image so it is more centered. Increase the contrast, add subtractive saturation, go to the print DCTL, look at the balance DCTL, go back to lab, increase the exposure, adjusting the contrast, look at the skin tones. I will also apply a LUT and will lower the color and the luminosity of the LUT. And the time is up. So here's the Rec. 09 version, and this is the final grade. I'm not that happy with the bluish background. If I had more time, I would dial it back and make the background more neutral, more white, more grayish. This grade it's a bit too much orange and teal. So let's move on to the next grade. I'm applying the look and the print. Apply a LUT, then I will lower the luminosity of the LUT. Go to lab, adjusting the temp and the tint slider. Check the balance DCTL. Go back to lab and adjusting the contrast, lowering the saturation and adding subtractive saturation. And I think I try to keep this image warm, so I'm adjusting the exposure. Go to printer lights and play around with different settings and just look what's good. And the time is up. So here's the Rec. 09 version, and this is my final grade. I'm happy with it. I tried to keep the warmth of the image, but with a more neutral background. So the ceiling it is not all yellow, it is more neutral, more white and grayish. And we have a nice separation between the singer and the background. Still feels warm. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply a look and the print. I check the balance DCTL, go to the lab, increase the exposure, and then I decide to add some contrast, adjusting the temp and the tint slider, adding subtractive saturation, Go back to the temp, lowering the saturation. Apply a LUT and lower the color and the luminosity. Go back to lab, increase the exposure, and the time is up. So here's the Rec. 7.9 version, and this is the final grade. We have a nice color separation, the contrast looks good, it is balanced. It's a good starting point, but I'm not sure about the overall look. But it's okay for 1 minute grade. Let's review the last 10 grades. This one is my favorite. And my personal worst grade is this one here. Let's move on to the next 10. I apply the look and the print. I also apply a LUT and play around with luminosity and the color slider. Go to the balance and look at the skin tones and check the saturation and the exposure. I'm adding subtractive saturation and the image already looks pretty good. I will lower the standard saturation and play around with the deep set slider. Increase the exposure a bit. And the image already looks pretty good. Then I'm looking at the shadows, maybe lowering the shadows a bit, and the time is up. So here's the Rec. 7.9 version, and this is the final grade. I'm happy about the reds in the shot and how the DRT is handling those colors. I'm happy with the contrast, I'm happy with the saturation. On to the next shot. I apply the look and the print. Then here I decided to change the blend mode of the look. I apply a LUT and I'm changing the luminosity of the LUT. Go to the balance and check the skin tones for exposure and saturation. Adding a bit of contrast. And I lower the saturation and adding a bit of subtractive saturation. Changing the temp and the tint slider. Go back to print and change the LUT. And I think the D65 looks pretty good. And the time is up. Here's the Rec. 7.9 version, and this is the final grade. It is much cleaner, very neutral. We have nice colors. It is very balanced. I like the contrast. I like the saturation. It is a good start. So let's move on to the next grade. I apply the look and the print. I apply also a LUT. Change the LUT luminosity. Go to subtractive saturation. Lower the standard saturation. Adjust the temp and the tint slider a bit. I'm looking at the vectorscope, balance everything, go back to the balance detail, look at the skin tones and the saturation, increasing the saturation a bit, back to the balance detail, and this already looks pretty nice. Going back to the lab, increasing the contrast, increasing the tone compression, lowering the highlights, and the time is up. Here's the Rec. 7.9 version, and this is the final grade with such a nice shot. You just have to balance it, find the right exposure, adding a bit of subtractive saturation, and it looks fantastic. So let's move on to the next grade. So I apply the look and the print. I also apply a LUT and bring down the LUT luminosity a bit. And the color, I increase the subtractive saturation and increase the blue density and the cyan density a bit. Increase the contrast, increase the tone compression, and take a look at the image. Bring down the highlights a bit. Go to my balance DCTL and check the skin tones and the exposure and so on. And I go to my printer lights and try to create a look, and the time is up. So here's the Rec 09 version, and this is my final grade. Very harsh. I like the high contrast look. I like the skin tones. I like the bluish look. If I had more time, I would add halation and grain to it. And I'm very pleased with the results, and let's move on to the next shot. I apply look and print. I go to the lab and adjust the temp and tint slider and the exposure, add more contrast, add more subtractive saturation, lowering the standard saturation, adjust the deep set slider, and I'm looking at the image and I apply a LUT and lowering the LUT luminosity and just see what feels good. Go back to the lab and printer lights and just experimenting with the slider if anything looks good, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version and here's the final grade. It is much darker, so we change the exposure. I'm not sure about the mood of the scene. On to the next grade. I apply the look and the print, go to lab and increase the contrast, add some subtractive saturation, go to the balance and check the skin tones. I'm adjusting the tint slider and I'm checking the exposure and the saturation. I apply auto U rotate so I can rotate the image and the skin tones stay mostly in place, and just see what feels good for the image. Then I go back to the lab, adjust the shadows a bit, so I'm not losing details, and the time is up. So here's the Rec 09 version, and this is the final grade. I'm happy with the skin tones, I'm happy with the blue. I'm not sure about the contrast, about the highlights, about the exposure, but it is okay. Let's move on to the next grade. So I apply look and the print. I also add a LUT, and I'm lowering the LUT luminosity and the color and see what feels right. Then I go to the lab and checking the balance tool and adjusting the tint and the temp slider so the skin tones looks natural. And I'm checking the balance tool for exposure and saturation, adding a bit of subtractive saturation and lowering the saturation, adjusting the exposure, add a bit of contrast and a bit of tone compression, and I think this looks okay. And the time's up. Here's the Rec 09 version. This is the final grade. I'm not sure if it works or if it can be pushed in a direction. So with more time, I would try the printer lights and experiment with the look a bit more. But for 1 minute, it looks okay. So on to the next grade. So I apply the look and the print. I also apply a LUT and will adjusting the LUT color and LUT luminosity. I choose the D55, D65 and see what feels good to the image. Then I go to Lab, increase the exposure, increase the contrast, lowering the standard saturation a bit, adding subtractive saturation, and this already feels pretty good. And yeah, maybe adjusting the exposure slightly and the shadows, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version and this is the final grade. A lot of heavy lifting is coming from the DRT and the look DCTL. I like the colors, I like the warm feel, I like the saturation, I like the contrast, I like the highlight roll-off. On to the next grade. I apply the look, I apply print, go to Lab and increase subtractive saturation, go to the balance DCTL and I'm adjusting the tint slider and the temp. Then I will check the exposure and saturation. So bring the exposure a bit up, adding a bit of contrast and adding also more subtractive saturation. And this looks pretty good right now. And lowering the temp, make it a bit cooler, a bit more tone compression, lowering the highlights, add more shadows, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and this is our grade. Maybe we could try to have even more separation between the skin tones and the background. And with more time, maybe it would be possible to bring more details back in the highlights. And on to the next grade. I apply the look and the print, go to the lab, adjusting the temp and the tint slider, add a bit of subtractive saturation, go to balance, go back to lab, and adjust the tint and the temp slider. And I'm checking the exposure and the overall saturation, increasing the exposure slightly, increasing also the standard saturation a bit. And this looks pretty good. Now I'm adding a LUT, bring down the LUT color and LUT luminosity. And the time is almost up, and that's it. Here's the Rec 09 version, and this is the final grade. I'm totally happy with it. I think the exposure is right, the contrast is right, and it is super easy to create because the DP already did a great job. Let's review the last 10 grades. This one is my favorite. And my personal worst grade is this one here. Let's move on to the next 10. I apply the look and the print. I also apply a LUT and bring the LUT color and luminosity down. Bring the exposure down, the shadows up, and also the shadow range up. So I have more information in the shadows, adding subtractive saturation. I'm also increasing the cyan and blue density. And go to color shift and also increase blue saturation, blue density, and cyan saturation and cyan density to have much details in the sky. Then I'm checking the balance DCTL and the time's up. Here's the Rex 09 version and this is the final grade. So I was trying to get enough information from the highlights and still have enough information also in the shadows and make sure the skin tones looks nice and enough details outside of the window. I like the colors, I like the tones. On to the next grade. I apply the look and the print. I also apply LUT. I'm changing the LUT luminosity and the color. Go to lab. Go to the balance DCTL and look at the skin tones. Looks good. Then I'm adding a bit of contrast and a bit of tone compression. And the image already looks good. So there's not much to do. Maybe add a bit of subtractive saturation. Lowering the standard saturation. Go to the printer lights and experiment with the sliders and see what feels right to the image. And the time is up. So here's the Rex 09 version and here's the final grade. And with such a great shot, you don't have to do much as a colorist. You just have to dial in the exposure, the contrast and saturation. It looks good. So on to the next grade. I apply the print and the look DCTL. I also apply a LUT and bring the LUT color and LUT luminosity down. I will check the balance DCTL. I am lowering the exposure. Then I go to the temp and tint sliders to make sure the skin tones looks right. I'm adding subtractive saturation. And this already looks pretty good. Then I'm checking the waveform and the shadows and bring down the shadows a bit and bring the exposure a bit up. And the time is up. So here's the Rex 09 version and this is our final grade. I like the color contrast. I like the overall contrast in the scene, the exposure, the saturation, the tone, the skin tones, the color of the car. On to the next grade. I apply the print and the look. I'm going to the lab, adding more subtractive saturation, also adding more exposure. I'm adjusting the temp and the tint slider so the skin tones looks all right. And I'm looking at the image. Currently it is a very warm feel, adding more contrast and a bit of tone compression, adding more subtractive saturation and also standard saturation. Adding a LUT and bring down the LUT color and LUT luminosity. And that's it. The time is up. So here's the Rex 09 version and this is the final grade. It is very warm, very yellowish. It could be a warm summer movie. I'm happy with the skin tones. I like that the green is not shifting towards cyan. Yeah, let's move on to the next grade. As always, apply the look and the print. I'm going for the lab, lowering the exposure, apply a LUT. I will lower the LUT color and luminosity. Back in lab, I'm adjusting the temp and the tint sliders and the contrast, adding more subtractive saturation, lowering the standard saturation, adjusting the temp slider and also the tint. Go to the balance DCTL and I'm checking the skin tones and I'm adjusting the skin bias in the look DCTL. Go to the lab, bring down the exposure. You can see it in the left bottom half, and the time is up. So here's the Rec 09 version, and this is the final grade. I like the shadows, I like the overall contrast, I like the colors, the green background, the skin tones, the overall balance. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print and the look and go to the lab and add subtractive saturation. Then I'm going to the RGB Mixer and color shift and adding more density to magenta and a bit of saturation. I'm checking the balance DCTL and skin tones looks good. I'm lowering the exposure and this already looks pretty good. I'm going back to the lab and I'm adjusting the temp and tint sliders a bit. I'm checking the balance and the skin tones are off and the time is up. So this is the Rec 09 version and this is our grade. Maybe it's a bit dark, but I think it works. The overall colors look great, the exposure is correct, we have enough details in the shadows. I'm okay with it. So let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print and the look. I apply a LUT. I increase the exposure and also the contrast. Add tone compression, adjusting the highlights. Add subtractive saturation and lowering the standard saturation. Adjusting the temp slider and the tint. And checking the skin tones. And we have really nice separation between the foreground and the background. I'm adjusting the shadows. So we have more neutral shadows and also the shadows in the lab, and the time is up. So here's the Rec 09 version and this is our grade. We have a nice separation between the background and the actor. The skin tones are looking good. So maybe it's too bluish in the background, but it's okay. It's a good start and let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print and also the look. Go to the lab, increase the exposure, also increase the contrast, adding subtractive saturation. Then I'm lowering the temp and also lowering the tint. Increase the exposure, apply a LUT and change the luminosity and the color. Increase the tone compression. Bring down the shadows. Go to the waveform and adjusting the shadows. And this looks already pretty good. I'm checking the skin tones. I'm adjusting the skin bias in the look DCTL. Go back to print, and the time is up. So this is the Rex 09 version, and this is our grade. So we have a more balanced image. Maybe it is a bit too saturated and there is too much contrast, but it is a good start, and let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print and also the look. Go back to the print and adjusting the red hue a bit. Go to the lab, increase subtractive saturation and increase the exposure slightly. I'm playing around with the shadow slider. Go to the waveform and I'm checking the shadows and try to balance the shadows a bit. Bring the overall shadows up. And that's pretty much it. So the time is up. Here's the red 709 version, and this is our grade. The red is more shifting towards orange, and we have a nice highlight roll-off. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print and also the look. Then I go to lab and adding more subtractive saturation, contrast. I'm adjusting the exposure and adjusting the temp slider. Adjusting the yellow density, go to the balance, DCTL, go back to lab and adjusting the tint slider so the skin tone looks good. Bring down the exposure, bring down the standard saturation, and this looks pretty good now. Go to the waveform and checking the shadows, and the time is up. Here's the Rex 09 version, and this is our grade. It is more balanced, the skin tone looks good, I like the contrast and the exposure. So maybe with more time I would adjust the shadows a little bit more, but it is okay. Let's review the last 10 grades. This one is my favorite. And my personal worst grade is this one here. Let's move on to the next 10. I apply the print. Then I will lower the LUT, luminosity and color. I'm adding more contrast, adding subtractive saturation. I balance the image using the temp and the tint sliders. Go to the balance detail. I'm checking the exposure, adjusting the temp and the tint. So this looks all right. I'm going back to the lab, increase a tiny bit of subtractive saturation and change the exposure, and the time is up. So this is the Rex 09 image, and here's our final grade. I'm very pleased with the skin tones. We have a nice color contrast, we have a nice overall contrast, the exposure feels right. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print and the look, go to lab, increase the exposure, adding more subtractive saturation and more contrast. Then I'm adjusting the temp and the tint slider, balancing the image a bit, lowering the saturation, adding more red density. Go to the balance DCTL and I'm checking the skin tones, the exposure and the saturation. And this looks pretty good. I apply a LUT, lowering the LUT color and LUT luminosity. Go to the waveform, adjusting the shadows, and the time is up. Here's the Rec. 09 version, and this is our grade. So the original footage was very dark. We added more density to the red, and I'm happy with the skin tones and the overall feel of the scene. There is enough detail in the shadows. So let's move on to the next one. I enable print and also the look. Go to the lab and I'm increasing the contrast, add subtractive saturation, adjusting the temp and the tint slider, and go to my balance DCTL and I'm checking the skin tones, the exposure and the saturation. Then I go to print and I apply LUT and reducing the LUT color and LUT luminosity. And I'm looking at the image. I think it looks already pretty good. Then I'm adjusting the shadows. And the time is up. So here's the Rec. 09 version. This is our version. It is very easy to create such an image because the DP already did a great job. So this makes it really easy to create. Now on to the next grade. I apply the print and also the look. Go to the lab, increase the exposure, adding more contrast, adding more tone compression, adding also subtractive saturation, adjusting the temp and tint slider so it's more balanced. And we have more color separation between the skin tones and the background. I'm lowering the blue density, increase the exposure, adding more contrast, lowering the highlights, go back to the balance DCTL. I'm checking the skin tones and the exposure. I also apply LUT, bring down the LUT luminosity and the color, increase the exposure, and the time is up. Here's the Rec. 09 version, and this is our grade. I like the blue color in it, and I like the skin tones. I like the overall contrast and the exposure. It's a good start. On to the next grade. I enable print and look. Go to the lab, change the exposure, add more contrast, apply a LUT, and reduce the luminosity and the color. Going to the balance DCTL and checking the skin tones and the exposure and the overall saturation, adding subtractive saturation, and this already looks pretty good. I'm going back to the lab, playing around with the temp slider and the tint, and just just adjusting what feels good, and the time is up. Here's the Rec. 09 version, and here's our grade. So if I had more time, I would definitely check the highlights and try to bring the highlights a bit down. So overall look and feel of the scene, I want to make it look very natural. So on to the next shot. I enable the print and the look. I'm going to the lab, increase the exposure. I'm checking the footage. Then I go to the balance tool and I'm checking the skin tones. And then I'm adjusting the temp slider and the tint. And just see what feels good to the image. I'm adding subtractive saturation, lowering the standard saturation, increase the exposure a bit, adding more contrast, and maybe lowering the contrast a bit, the exposure a bit, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and this is our grade. So it is a lot brighter. I like the blue tones, I like the skin tones in the shot. It works. I'm happy with it, and on to the next shot. I enable print and look DCTL, go to the lab DCTL, add subtractive saturation, lowering standard saturation, add a bit of contrast, reduce a bit of subtractive saturation, enable the LUT, lowering the contrast, and lowering the shadows. And adding more density to the blue. And also more density for cyan, and playing around with the sliders and the color shaper, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and here our version. Maybe the contrast is a bit high. I think it kind of works. I like the blue sky, I like the skin tones. It feels rich in color, but also muted at the same time. It's a good start. Let's move on to the next shot. I enable the print. I also enable the look. I apply a LUT. I'm changing the LUT color and LUT luminosity. I bring down the exposure, add a bit of contrast. I'm lowering the shadows, adding subtractive saturation. I'm lowering the standard saturation. I'm going to my balance DCTL and check the skin tones and the exposure and the overall saturation. And the image already looks pretty good. I'm adding a bit of tone compression, adding more contrast, fine-tuning the exposure, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and here's our version. So I like the colors. I kept the rocks pretty neutral. I like the greens, that they are more shifting towards cyan. And the skin tone looks alright, and we have enough details in the shadows. So let's move on to the next grade. I enable the print and also enable the look. Go to the lab detail, add more contrast, add subtractive saturation, lowering the standard saturation. Go to the print, apply a LUT, reduce luminosity and also the color. Then I go to the balance detail. I'm checking the skin tones, the exposure, and also the saturation. Then in the lab detail, I change the temp and tint sliders, adding a bit more contrast, a bit of tone compression. And I'm looking at the footage and how it feels. reducing the highlights a bit, and the time is up. Now here's the Rec 9 version, and this is our grade. Maybe the whole scene is a bit bright, so in the second round I probably would push the exposure down a bit. We have a nice separation between the skin tones and the background. It's okay. Let's move on to the next grade. I enable print and I also enable look. Go to the print, apply LUT. I'm reducing LUT color and LUT luminosity. Go to the lab DCTL, adjusting the contrast. I'm adding more saturation and reducing the standard saturation. Go to the balance DCTL. I'm checking the skin tones and the exposure, and the image already looks pretty good. So I have 15 seconds left. Go back to the lab, changing the shadows and maybe adjusting the temp and tint slider a bit, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 9 version, and here's the final grade. Such a nice cinematography, and you just have to make sure that the skin tone looks good, the exposure looks good, the colors, the graffiti looks good, and this was really easy to grade. Let's review the last 10 grades. This one is my favorite, and my personal worst grade is this one here. Let's move on to the next 10. I enable the print and the look. Go to the lab DCTL, add some subtractive saturation, adjusting the exposure, adding some contrast. I'm lowering the shadows and go back to the print DCTL, apply LUT and reducing the LUT luminosity and the color. Go to the balance and I'm checking the skin tones, which are green at the moment. Then I'm going to the look and changing the bias. And in the lab DCTL, I'm also adjusting the temp and the tint slider. And now the skin tones looks much better and the time is up. Here's the Rec 9 version, and here's our final grade. So normally you always go for color separation, but the background wall is also warm and also the floor. So in his dress we have very nice white and black tones, and also the blue looks very good. It's okay. Let's move on to the next grade. I enable print and look. Then I'm going to the lab, adding subtractive saturation, play around with the exposure, adding some contrast, adding tone compression, reducing the highlights, go to the print, apply LUT, reducing LUT luminosity and LUT color, adjusting the contrast, and at the moment it looks very reddish. I'm going to the balance tool and I'm adjusting the temp slider and also the tint. And the time is up. Here's the Rec 9 version, and here's our grade. So I try to keep it very natural. I did not try to fight the brightness in the scene, work with the harsh sunlight. I'm not trying to push the blue sky into some cyan tone. I wanted to keep the blue sky blue. So let's move on to the next grade. I enable print and also enable look. I apply a LUT. I'm reducing LUT color and LUT luminosity. I'm adjusting the contrast and the exposure. Adding some tone compression, reducing the highlights, reducing also the shadows, adding some subtractive saturation, go to the balance tool. I'm checking the skin tones and I'm going for a more cooler look. So this already looks pretty good. Going back to the lab, add a bit of more subtractive saturation and the time is up. Here's the Rec 79 version and here's our final grade. So we added more contrast. It looks very natural. I think the exposure is right. We have enough details in the shadows. I like the grayish brownish tone. It doesn't need more color separation or anything. I'm happy with it. Let's move on to the next grade. I enable print. I enable look. Then I apply a LUT. Change the LUT luminosity and the color. I'm adjusting the temp slider and the tint. Adding a bit of exposure. Adding more contrast to the image. Apply the balance detail. I'm checking the skin tones and the exposure and saturation. Go to the lab. Add a bit of tone compression. Go to the waveform. And looking at the shadows. Add a bit more tone compression. Adding a more contrast. Adjusting the shadows. And this already looks pretty good, and the time's up. Here's the Rec 79 version, and this is our grade. It is much warmer. The jeans jacket looks good. His skin tone looks good. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print, DCTL, and the look. I also apply LUT. I'm bring down the color and the luminosity. I'm adjusting the temp and the tint slider. Go to the balance tool and bring down the exposure and adding more subtractive saturation. I will disable the balance detail and I'm looking at the image and it looks already pretty good. I'm going to the print. Going back to the lab detail, play around with the shadow sliders, reducing the standard saturation a bit, bring down the highlights, add a bit of tone compression, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 79 image, and this is our final grade. In direct comparison, it looks a bit cold. I'm always aiming for a naturalistic look first with clean white walls. Maybe it is too clean, but I think there is a nice separation between warm skin tones and the more neutral background. I'm happy with it. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply a print and a look. Go to the lab. Increase the exposure. Change the temp and also the tint slider, checking the vector scope, how are my skin tones. At the moment a bit greenish, but that might be fine. Adding a bit of more contrast, subtractive saturation, adding more density to the red, a bit more tone compression, a bit more contrast, lowering the shadows, and this looks already pretty good, and the time is up. So here's the Rec 79 version, and this is our grade. I wanted to create more color separation. Maybe it was pushed too much because now the wall is leaning a bit too much into cyan. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print DCTL and also the look DCTL. I apply LUT, reduce the LUT luminosity and the LUT color. I'm changing the exposure, adding some contrast, reduce the saturation, adding subtractive saturation, and adjusting the temp and the tint sliders, adding more subtractive saturation, and this already looks pretty good. I'm checking the balance detail and the skin tones. I'm going to my look and I'm changing the skin bias slider. I'm adjusting the exposure, bring the shadows a bit down, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 79 version, and this is our final grade. I was trying to get a nice color separation between the skin tones and the background, but now it feels too cold and not sunny anymore. I think I was too focused on color separation. For 1 minute it is okay, and let's move on. I enable the print, apply a LUT, reduce the color and the luminosity, go to the lab, and I'm changing the exposure a bit, adding more contrast, bring the exposure up, adding more tone compression, adding subtractive saturation. I'm checking the balance detail. I enable the look, go back to the lab, and I'm adjusting the temp and the tint sliders so the skin tones are more near the skin tone line, changing the exposure a bit, and the contrast and the tone compression, and the time is up. So here's the Rec 79 version, and this is our grade. It is a bit more balanced, low contrast. I try to have a little bit magenta in the skin tones because I thought it fits the scene and the overall look. It looks very moody. So on to the next grade. I apply the print DCTL, apply LUT, reduce LUT color and LUT luminosity. I'm checking the balance, and right now it's very cold look. So I'm adjusting the temp and the tint sliders. So we have more natural skin tones. I'm going to the lab, adjusting subtractive saturation. And yeah, now the image is very warm. And this looks pretty good. And maybe I'm a bit lost here. And adjusting the shadows a bit, and the time is up. So here's the Rec 79 version, and this is the final look. Yes, the skin tones are on the skin tone line and may look better, but the overall look now, maybe a cooler look, a blue tone, would also fit and may fit the scene better. For 1 minute it is okay, and it is just one version. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print detail and the look, I also apply a LUT, reduce LUT color and LUT luminosity, bring up the exposure a bit, adding more contrast, push the shadows down, adding more density to the red, reducing saturation, adding subtractive saturation, adjusting the temp and the tint slider, go to the balance DCTL, go back to the look and adjusting the skin bias slider. But then I'm going back to lab and adjusting the tint slider, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 79 version, and here's my grade. It has a really high contrast. It looks very harsh, but that was intentionally. I wanted to enhance the cinematography and the harsh lighting, and I want to lean into it. And I like the dark red tones and I like the bright pale skin. Let's review the last 10 grades. This one is my favorite. And my personal worst grade is this one here. Let's move on to the next 10. I apply the print DCTL and also the look DCTL. Apply the LUT. I'm reducing LUT luminosity and LUT color to 50%. Now I'm lowering further 20%. I'm adjusting the temp and the tint slider, adjusting the contrast and exposure. And here I'm adding subtractive saturation, lowering standard saturation, adjusting the exposure a bit, go back to the contrast, adding more tone compression, adjusting the shadows a bit, bring the shadows more up, adjusting the exposure, adjusting the shadows, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 79 version, and this is our final grade. With those scenes, I try to have the background very natural and neutral. So we have nice, clean whites in combination with the warm skin tones. I'm happy with the result. The skin tones are very present and we have a nice separation. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print, DCTL and the look. I'm going to the lab. I'm lowering the exposure, adjusting the temp. I'm checking the skin tones and adjusting the temp and the tint slider. And adding more subtractive saturation. I'm checking the balance DCTL. I'm looking at the exposure and saturation and skin tones. Bring down the exposure a bit, adding more contrast, adding more tone compression. And this looks pretty good. Changing the exposure a bit and the time's up. Here's the Rec 79 version and here's our grade. I like the exposure, I like the overall color, I like the skin tones, and it feels saturated but still natural and not oversaturated. On to the next grade. I apply the print and also apply the look. I will lower the exposure. I'm adding more contrast. Apply a LUT. I'm reducing the LUT luminosity and the LUT color. Go back to the lab. Play around with the exposure. I'm checking the balance and adjusting the temp and the tint slider a bit, but I prefer the cool blue look. I'm adding some contrast, and I think I like to keep it moody, so that's it, the time is up. Here's the Rec. 709 version, and this is our grade. And here I was trying to capture the mood of the scene. It is dark, but we have enough information in the image. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print and the look DCTL. I apply LUT. I'm reducing the LUT luminosity and the color. I'm adjusting the exposure a bit, adjusting the contrast, adding some tone compression, reducing the highlights, adding subtractive saturation, lowering saturation, go to the balance DCTL, and I'm checking the skin tones. Now I'm trying to adjust the skin tones using temp and tint, and adding more saturation, and I only got 3 seconds, so the last adjustments and the time's up. So here's the Rec. 709 version, and this is my grade. I was trying to have neutral background and neutral tone to the overall scene, and it is balanced. I think it has the right amount of exposure and contrast. Let's move on to the next one. I apply the print and the look DCTL, apply LUT. I'm reducing the LUT luminosity and the color. Go back to the lab, adding some subtractive saturation, lowering saturation, adding some contrast, lowering the exposure, adjusting the temp slider and also the tint. Then I go to printer lights. I turn auto hue rotate on and trying to find a look and push everything more towards green. I'm checking the balance and I'm going to the look and adjusting the skin bias, and the time is up. Now this is a Rec. 709 version, and this is my final grade, and I pushed everything slightly more towards green. I like the silver cyan look, and I think it works great for that scene. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print and the look DCTL, apply LUT. I'm reducing LUT luminosity and LUT color. I'm going to the lab, adding contrast, adding subtractive saturation. I'm lowering the exposure, and I'm adjusting the temp and also the tint. Then I'm checking the skin tones and also the exposure and overall saturation. And the image looks pretty normalized now and pretty good. So I'm going to printer lights and play around to create a bit of a look, and the time is up. Here's the Rec. 709 version, and this is our grade. Skin tones are looking fine, the overall exposure looking good, and I like the contrast. It's a good start. So let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print, and I also apply the look DCTL, apply LUT. I'm changing the LUT color and luminosity, I'm increasing the exposure a bit, adding more contrast. Play around with the shadow slider. Add a bit of tone compression. Bring down the highlights. Bring down the shadows. And adding subtractive saturation. And I'm looking at the image. Maybe cool it a bit down. Adjusting the temp and the tint. And the time is almost up, and now the time is up. Here's the Rec. 7.9 version, and this is our final grade. I've made sure that the skin tone looks good, and the overall contrast and exposure, and we have enough details in the highlights. I'm totally fine with it, and let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print and the look DCTL, apply LUT, change the LUT color and luminosity, adding subtractive saturation, adjusting the exposure, adjusting the contrast, adding tone compression, and the image looks already pretty good. I'm playing around with the density, adding more subtractive saturation. I'm checking the balance DCTL, skin tones, exposure and saturation looks good. I'm checking the image and the vibe. How does it feel? Going to the printer lights, using auto U rotate, trying to create a look, and the time is up. Here's the Rec. 7.9 version, and this is our version. We changed the brightness a bit and adding a good amount of saturation, nice contrast. We have to check the highlights so that the highlights are not clipping. So maybe it is a bit bright on the flippers. On to the next grade. I apply the print and the look DCTL. I apply LUT. I'm reducing LUT color and LUT luminosity. Increase the exposure, increase the contrast. Adding subtractive saturation. I'm lowering the standard saturation a bit. I'm looking at the image and it looks already pretty good. I'm adjusting the temp slider. I apply the balance DCTL, checking skin tones and exposure. And I'm skipping through the image, through the footage, and adjusting the tint slider a bit, lowering the shadows a bit. And this looks pretty good, and the time is up. Here's the Rec. 7.9 version, and this is our grade. I like the skin tones, I like the colors, so the colors are visible but not too dominant. I think it has a nice balance, and we have enough details in the shadows. Yeah, let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print DCTL and the look DCTL. I go to the lab, adding subtractive saturation, then I decide I want more saturation in the yellow, so I'm going to the color shift, DCTL. I play around with the exposure, adding more contrast, and bring the shadows down a bit. And at the moment the image is pretty warm, but I think I like it that way. Maybe not. I play around with the temp and the tint sliders. And checking the skin tones, the exposure and saturation. And the time is up. Here's the Rec. 7.9 version, and here's our grade. So of course I want to make the yellow pop. keep the overall image bright and warm and colorful. I think it looks good. Let's review the last 10 grades. This one is my favorite. And my personal worst grade is this one here. Let's move on to the next 10. I apply the print DCTL. I apply LUT, reduce LUT luminosity and LUT color. I'm going to the lab, adding subtractive saturation, adjusting the temp and the tint, and try to balance everything. I'm lowering the exposure, adding contrast. I'm reducing the saturation a bit. I'm checking the balance, going back to the lab and adjusting the tint slider so the skin tone looks better. Bring down the shadows. And I totally forgot to apply the look DCTL, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 79 version, and this is our grade. I don't want to lean too much into an orange and teal look. So I like that the greens are dense, but still green and not leaning too much into the cyan tone. And we have nice skin tones. We have enough details in our shadows. I'm very pleased with the look. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print DCTL and the look DCTL. I'm going to the lab. I'm reducing the contrast, increase the exposure. I'm adjusting the temp and the tint, get the image more balanced, adding subtractive saturation, go to the balance, DCTL, and I'm checking the skin tones. At the moment it is a little bit more magenta, but that might be fine. I'm reducing the shadows. And adjusting the shadows a bit. And that's it. The time's up. Here's the Rec 79 version, and this is our version. So the skin tones are less red, more natural. Unlike the color contrast in the shot, we have enough details in the shadows. It looks good. On to the next shot. I apply the print DCTL and also the look. And I apply LUT, and I'm reducing the LUT luminosity and the color. I'm playing around with the exposure, adjusting the contrast, adding a bit of subtractive saturation, lowering saturation, adjusting the temp and the tint. And I'm scrubbing through the footage, adding a bit more of subtractive saturation, adjusting the tint. Then I'm checking the balance and the skin tones and the exposure and saturation on the skin tones. It looks okay, so I'm lowering the exposure and the time is up. Here's the Rec 79 version, and this is our grade. Less saturated. I like the orange much more. I'm not sure about the skin tones, but it fits the scene and it feels very natural. I'm okay with it. Let's move on to the next grade. I'm applying the print and the look. I go to the lab, bring down the exposure, adding some contrast, adding subtractive saturation and lowering saturation. I'm checking the footage and it looks already pretty good. I'm warming up the image a bit using the temp slider. I'm checking the balance and adjusting the tint slider so the skin tones are looking better now. And this image already looks pretty good. I'm adjusting the shadows. And this is very warm, but it looks good, and the time is up. Here's the Rec. 09 version, and this is our grade. With a bit more time, we should try to have a bit more separation between the foreground and the background. So for 1 minute it is okay, the skin tone looks fine. Let's move on to the next grade. I enable print and I also enable look. I go to the lab tool, bring down the exposure, go to the waveform, bring tone compression all the way up, adjust the contrast, adding subtractive saturation, lowering the standard saturation, go to the balance tool. I'm checking the skin tones and this looks already very nice. I like the color of the snow and the color of the skin and the color of the clothes and everything. So I play around with the highlight slider and bring the exposure a bit down. But that's it, the time is up. Here's the Rec. 09 version and here's our version. Grading snow is one of the hardest challenges. It must have the right amount of brightness and it's also important to have the right color for the snow. I like the skin tones, I like the overall look. I think it works. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print, DCTL and the look, and I apply LUT. I bring down the LUT color and luminosity. I bring down the exposure, adding subtractive saturation, and this already looks pretty nice. So I'm adding a bit of contrast, bit of tone compression, bring down the highlights a bit, and play around with the exposure to see what looks best. Play around with the temp and the tint slider. Go to the balance tool, checking exposure, contrast, saturation, and the time is up. Here's the Rec. 09 version and here's our grade. I like that it is much darker and we have nice texture in the sky and we have nice skin tones. I just like the overall look. Let's move on to the next grade. I enable the print and the look DCTL, go to print, apply a LUT. I will lower the LUT color and luminosity. I'm changing the exposure, adding subtractive saturation, add a little bit of contrast and tone compression, and the image already looks pretty good. I'm checking the balance DCTL, and now I'm playing around with the temp and the tint slider and checking the balance again, adjusting the tint slider and lower the standard saturation, and the time is up. Here's the Rec. 09 version and here's our grade. We lowered the exposure a bit. I just want a very clean and natural look, so where everything is balanced, and I think it works. It's a good starting point. Let's move on to the next grade. I enable print and look DCTL, apply LUT, bring down the LUT color and luminosity. I'm changing the exposure, contrast, adding subtractive saturation, and the image already looks pretty good. I will lower the shadows, looking at the image, adding blue density, cyan density, checking the balance DCTL, and adjusting the temp and the tint slider, going for a more colder look, adding subtractive saturation, and this looks pretty good, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 79 version, and here's our grade. With such high quality images, it is very easy to create. And you just watched that I just have to do very little to make this image looks good. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print DCTL and the look. Then I'm adding some contrast, lowering the exposure, adding subtractive saturation, adjusting the temp slider, and push it more to the warm, and checking the balance DCTL, adjusting the tint slider to fix the skin tones, adjusting the temp slider, and this already looks pretty good. So I'm going back to the lab and adding a bit more of tone compression, more contrast, bring the shadows a bit down, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 79 version, and this is our final grade. The skin tones are looking great. The green background also looks good. I like the overall saturation, the exposure, the contrast. Everything fits. Onto the next grade. I enable print, apply a LUT, lower the LUT color and LUT luminosity, go to lab, bring down the exposure, add more tone compression, add a bit of contrast, adjusting the temp, go to the balance detail, and I'm checking the skin tones and saturation and exposure, adjusting the tint slider and the temp slider for better skin tones, bring down the subtractive saturation, adding more density for cyan and blue. Go to printer lights, click on Auto U Rotate, and try to create a look, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 79 version, and this is our final grade. It goes into the right direction. Maybe it is a bit dark and could be brighter, but it depends on the story, and I like the colors, I like the blue in the sky, and it's a good start. Let's review the last 10 grades. This one is my favorite, and my personal worst grade is this one here. Let's move on to the next 10. I enable the print DCTL, I enable also the look DCTL, apply a LUT, bring down the exposure, adjusting the temp and the tint slider, and adding more contrast, adding tone compression, a bit of bleach bypass look, bring down the shadows, adding more contrast, bring the exposure down. I'm looking at the footage and adding more red density and yellow density for the skin tones, and adding more subtractive saturation and adjusting the temp. So I want to keep the background neutral, and reset red density and yellow density, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and here's our grade. It was very important to nail the skin tones in that shot. At the beginning, the background was more shifting towards cyan. I balanced it back to have the background more neutral. I think it fits the scene. On to the next one. I'm looking at the footage. I enable print, apply a LUT, bring down LUT color and LUT luminosity, go to lab, bring down the exposure, and adjusting the temp and the tint slider. Go to printer lights, auto U rotate, and push everything more towards yellow, adding more contrast, adjusting the shadows, adding more subtractive saturation, and I'm looking at the footage and how it feels. I totally forgot to enable the look, DCTL, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and here's our version. I pushed everything more towards green. I thought it fits the overall mood of the scene. I like it. I think it looks great. And let's move on to the next one. I enable print DCTL and the look DCTL. I will lower the exposure. I balance the image using temp and tint, adding subtractive saturation, lower the shadows, and this already looks pretty good. So I'm looking at the footage and how it feels when in motion. I play around with the shadow slider a bit and with the saturation and the temp. I'm double checking the skin tones and see what feels right. And this looks good, so the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and here's our final grade. I was trying to nail the skin tones and make the overall shot feel very clean. We have a nice separation between the skin tones and the background. I was trying to have the right amount of exposure, the right amount of contrast. Let's move on to the next grade. I enable the print and also the look. I apply a LUT, bring down the LUT color and LUT luminosity, go to lab, and adjusting the exposure and the contrast, bring down the shadows, adding subtractive saturation, go to the balance tool, and I'm looking at the skin tones and adjusting the tint slider and enable auto U rotate and push everything more towards yellow, adjusting the temp, and this looks okay, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and here's our grade. I was trying to avoid the classic orange and teal look. If I had to do a second version, I would try to keep the background more neutral, make it more monochromatic. Let's move on to the next grade. I enable print and also the look DCTL, apply LUT, bring down LUT color and LUT luminosity. I'm adjusting the exposure, add more contrast, adding subtractive saturation, adjusting the temp and the tint slider. Go to printer lights, auto U rotate, and adjusting the yellow and blue light of the printer lights. Go to color shift, adding some red density, and this looks pretty good. I'm checking the skin tones, the exposure, and the overall saturation. Adjusting the exposure slightly, and the time is up. Here's the Rec. 709 version, and this is our final grade. It kind of feels a bit dark, but also it totally works. It's okay. Let's move on to the next grade. I enable print DCTL. I also enable look. Go to the lab and adjusting the exposure, adding subtractive saturation, and looking at the footage, it already looks pretty good. I apply a LUT and bring down LUT color and LUT luminosity. Looking at the footage again, checking the balance and the skin tones, and adjusting the skin tones slightly, and looking at the footage again, but this looks already pretty good, and there is no time left, so the time is up. Here's the Rec. 709 version, and this is our grade, and we have to make sure that we have enough details in our shadows, and I'm super pleased with the result. It looks good. Let's move on to the next grade. I enable the print DCTL and also the look DCTL. Go to my lab DCTL, adding subtractive saturation, lowering exposure, adjusting the temp and the tint slider. Go to balance, click on highlight neutrals. So I want the white to be white, so I'm adjusting the temp and the tint sliders. So now the shirt is green, which means it is neutral. Then I will adjust the tint slider slightly, so the skin tones looks good. Go back to lab, adding more contrast, and the time is up. Here's the Rec. 709 version, and this is our final grade. I like the skin tones, I like the overall warm look of the scene. I like it. Let's move on to the next one. I enable the print and the look DCTL. I'm going to the lab, adding more subtractive saturation, adjusting the temp and the tint slider, and also the exposure. I'm adding more contrast. I'm checking the footage, and this looks already pretty good. I enable the balance DCTL. I'm checking the skin tones, adjusting the tint slider slightly, looking at the footage again, and it looks already pretty good. Then I'm going for a look, so I'm using printer lights, click on auto U rotate, and push everything more towards yellow, and the time is up. Here's the Rec. 709 version, and this is our final grade. I pushed everything slightly to a warmer tone, but it still feels very natural and isn't pushed too much. And the skin tone looks fine. Let's move on to the next grade. I enable the print and the look DCTL, go to lab, lower the exposure. I'm changing the temp and the tint slider, balance the image a bit, contrast, apply LUT, lowering the LUT color and LUT luminosity. Go back to the lab DCTL and I'm looking at the image. I'm adding subtractive saturation, enabling the balance DCTL and looking at the skin tones and adjusting the temp and the tint slider. So now it's pretty warm. And this is the current look and a bit of tone compression, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and this is our grade. It is much cooler now, maybe too cool, and I don't really feel the scene, but for 1 minute it is okay, and that's a part of the game. Let's move on to the next one. I enable the print DCTL and also the look DCTL. I'm adding subtractive saturation. I will lower the exposure, adjusting the temp and the tint, and go to RGB Mixer, and then I play around with the blue versus red density slider. And I'm going to the lab and checking the balance DCTL, adjusting the exposure, also adjusting the tint slider, disable the balance DCTL again, and adjusting the tint. I'm checking the skin tones, and the time is up. So here's the Rec 09 version, and this is our grade. I'm not 100% sure about the overall look, but without any context of the story, it is a good base, it's a good start, and let's move on. Let's review the last 10 grades. This one is my favorite, and my personal worst grade is this one here. Let's move on to the next 10. So I enable print and also look. I'm lowering the exposure, go to the print, apply LUT. I'm reducing the luminosity and the color of the LUT. I'm going to the balance DCTL, and I'm checking the skin tones and the exposure. I'm adjusting the temp and the tint slider. So the skin tones are looking better now. And I'm going to the lab and playing around with the exposure slider, reducing the shadows, add a bit of subtractive saturation, lowering the saturation, and the time is up. So here's the Rec 09 version, and this is our grade. I like the overall look, and with the grade I always try to enhance the work of the DP. I like the colors in the scene. It just looks and feels right. Let's move on to the next grade. I apply the print and the look. I also apply a LUT, bring down the LUT color and luminosity, increase the exposure, increase the contrast, increase subtractive saturation and lowering the standard saturation, go to the balance DCTL, I'm checking the skin tones, the exposure, the saturation, and the hue of the skin tones. I'm adjusting the temp and tint sliders. And this already looks pretty good. So I'm just check how the image looks like. Then I'm going to RGB Mixer and playing around with the settings, adding more density, and the time is up. Here's the Rexo 9 version, and this is our version. So it's a bit brighter. The overall feel of the scene looks right. I like the overall exposure and the contrast. So let's move on to the next grade. I enable print and also look. Go to lab, bring down the exposure. I'm adding more contrast, adding subtractive saturation, bring down the exposure a bit more, adjusting the contrast, bring down the shadows, go to the balance detail and adjusting the temp and the tint slider. So the skin tones looks nice. Disable the balance detail. And I'm looking at the image and it already looks pretty good. Going back to the lab. Bring down the exposure more. So play around with best settings and the time's up. Here's the Rexo 9 version and this is our grade. We have good skin tones. It could be pushed more into the warm tone, but for base grade, this looks fine. So let's move on to the next grade. I enable the look and the print. Go to the lab DCTL, adjust the contrast and adjusting the subtractive saturation. Apply a LUT in the print DCTL. I'm adjusting the luminosity and adjusting the color. Go to lab, check the skin tones. I'm adjusting the tint slider and the temperature slider. Adjusting the contrast and change the tone compression, lowering the highlights, and the time is up. So here's the Rexo 9 version and this is the final grade. We have very intense and dense greens, shifting a bit towards cyan. I like the contrast. I'm happy with the skin tones. It looks fine. So on to the next grade. I apply the look and the print. I also apply a LUT and bring down the LUT luminosity and the color. I'm trying out different Kodak LUTs and decide to choose the D65. Then I'm adjusting the skin tones, the tint slider. I'm adding more contrast, a bit of tone compression. I'm adjusting the shadows, adding subtractive saturation and lowering the standard saturation. And this looks pretty good already. I'm lowering the highlights a bit. And I'm just checking the image. And the time is up. And the time's up. Here's the Rexo 9 version and this is the final grade. I'm not sure about this direction, but it is the start. On to the next grade. I apply the print and also the look. I go to lab and I'm adding more subtractive saturation and also a bit of saturation, the standard saturation. Then I'm looking at the footage. Then I go back to the lab DCTL, increase the exposure and also the contrast. I apply a LUT and bring down the LUT color and LUT luminosity. And adjusting the temperature. I'm going for a cool tone. And the time is up. So here's the Rec 79 version, and this is the final grade. Very high contrast. I'm not sure about this grade. Let's move on to the next grade. So I'm adding print and also look. Go to lab and bring the exposure down, the contrast up, adding more subtractive saturation, lowering the standard saturation, adding more tone compression, go to the balance DCTL and I'm checking the skin tones, the exposure and saturation. This looks all pretty good. So now I'm going back to the lab and I'm playing around with the temp and the tint slider to see what feels right. Increase a little bit of subtractive saturation, adding more contrast. And that's it. Time's up. Here's the Rec 79 version and here our final grade. It is balanced, but it has a warm feel to it. It is just a base and it looks normalized and good. So let's move on to the next grade. I enable the print and the look DCTL, then I go to lab and reduce the exposure, add some contrast, subtractive saturation, go to the print and apply a LUT, and I will lower the color and the luminosity. I'm reducing the contrast, add a bit of tone compression, lowering the shadows, lowering also the highlights, adjusting the temp and the tint slider, go to the balance and I'm checking the exposure and the skin tones, and the overall saturation, and this looks pretty good and the time is up. Here's the Rec 79 version and here's our version. It is nice and balanced, it is bright, it feels like summer. On to the next grade. I enable look and print, go to the lab, add subtractive saturation, apply a LUT. I'm reducing the LUT color and LUT luminosity, go into the lab DCTL, adjust the temp and the tint, and this already looks pretty good. Then I'm shifting the hue in the mono print DCTL. I'm going to look and try some different looks. So rich field looks pretty good. Go to the balance tool and I'm checking the skin tones. The skin tones looking fine. And the time is up. Here's the Rec 79 version and this is our final grade. Personally, I don't like when the sky is shifting towards cyan, but in this case I think it looks good. And we have a nice color contrast between the skin tones and the sky. Let's move on to the next shot. I apply the print DCTL and also the look. Go to lab. I'm changing the exposure a bit. Apply a LUT. I'm changing the LUT luminosity and the color, adding some contrast, bring exposure back up. I'm adding some subtractive saturation and adjusting the temp and the tint slider. Go to the balance DCTL. I'm checking the skin tones and the exposure on her face. And this looks pretty good, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and here's our final grade. We have a little bit cyan in the background, but not overdone, not overcooked. It's fine. Let's review the last 10 grades. This one is my favorite. And my personal worst grade is this one here. Let's move on to the next 10. I enable print and the look. Then I apply the LUT. I will lower the LUT luminosity and the LUT color. Switch to the waveform. Reduce the blue shadow and the shadows. Then I enable the balance tool. I will increase the subtractive saturation and will lower the saturation slider. Switch back to the vector scope. Adjust the temp and the tint slider. Increase the contrast. I play around with the shadow slider. And that's it. This is the Rec 09 version, and this is our final grade. It looks okay, and we have a nice highlight roll-off, very dark shadows, still enough detail. It's very colorful, very high contrast. It fits because we have really harsh light. It looks good. So let's move on to the next grade. I enable print and looks. I enable balance. I will lower my exposure, adjust the temp and the tint slider. I will increase the contrast a bit. Also increase subtractive saturation. I will apply LUT and then I reduce the LUT luminosity and the LUT color. Adjust the shadows. I will take a look at the balance again, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and this is my grade. I think it looks okay. I'm not happy with the balance. I think it should be much warmer. It is okay for a 1 minute grade, but with more time I definitely push this more into a different direction. Let's move on to the next grade. I enable print and looks. Then I will adjust the temp and the tint slider. Apply a LUT. I will lower the LUT color and LUT luminosity sliders. Check different LUT options. Go to the balance node to check the exposure and saturation. I will play around with the shadow slider, lower the saturation and increase the subtractive saturation. Change the blue density a bit. And that's it. So here's the Rex 09 version, and this is our grade. It is a more muted tone, but still very colorful. So for 1 minute it looks okay. We still have enough details in the shadows. Let's move on to the next one. I enable print and looks, go to my balance DCTL and check the skin tones and the exposure. Go to the lab DCTL, add a bit of subtractive saturation, and I will lower the saturation slider, increase the deep set slider, go back to the balance DCTL, and adjust the temp and the tint slider to bring the image more to the cooler tone and shift it more to green. Add a bit of tone compression, and that's it. Here's the Rex 09 version, and this is our final grade. We have nice skin tones, and I like the green. It could also balance differently or pushed into a certain direction. With more time, you could experiment more with the material. It is okay. So let's move on to the next one. So I enable print and looks. I enable balance. I apply a LUT. Then I will dial down the LUT color and LUT luminosity. Switch to the lab. Lower the exposure. Adjust the temp and the tint slider so the skin tones align more along the skin tone line. Switch to the waveform and adjust the contrast. Add a little bit of tone compression. Lower the saturation and increase subtractive saturation. Go to the print. I will lower the green and blue shadows. And the time is up. Here's the Rex 09 version, and this is our final grade. It is a lot more denser. It fits the overall look. The red is very intense. It looks like a movie scene from a thriller, and it works. On to the next one. I enable print, I enable look, and the balance detail. I increase the exposure. I disable the balance detail, go back to the lab detail, increase contrast, and look at the footage. I will lower the exposure, add a bit of tone compression, lower the shadows, or better, increase the shadows. Increase the exposure, lower the contrast, play around with the tone compression slider, and the time is up. Here's the Rex 09 version, and here's our grade. So it is a lot brighter. We have enough details in the shadows, maybe too much details. I like the overall look. I like the grayish background. Her skin tone looks great. Let's move on to the next one. I enable print and looks. I enable balance detail. I go to the lab. Increase the contrast slider. And adjust the temp. I will take a closer look at the skin tones. Adjust the temp and tint sliders. This looks pretty good. Then I go to Lab. Increase the contrast. Increase the tone compression. Add a bit of shadows. Lower saturation and increase subtractive saturation, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and this is our final grade. It is very warm, high contrast. The saturation is very intense. Maybe with more time I would dial it back, but it's a good start, and let's move on to the next one. I enable print and I enable the look. Go to the lab, lower the exposure, look at the footage, add a little bit of contrast and tone compression, adjust the temp and the tint slider, go back to print and the balance DCTL, and looking at the exposure, and I decide to apply a LUT and lower the LUT sliders, and look at the footage again, go back to lab, add a bit of subtractive saturation, lowering the saturation slider, and that's it. Here's the Rec 09 version, and this is our grade. It is very sunny, very high saturated. Maybe we are losing a bit of detail in the highlights. I think it works. It's a good start. Yeah, it's okay. Let's move on to the next one. I enable print and also the look. I click on show curves, but that's not really important, I think. I will apply a LUT, then I will lower the LUT color and LUT luminosity. I adjust the green shadow and the blue shadow and the overall shadow sliders. Go to lab and also to balance and look at the skin tones and the exposure and temp and tint. Add subtractive saturation, lower the saturation slider. This looks pretty good, and the time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and here is our grade. We are losing a lot of detail in the shadows on the right side. With more time, I definitely would try to keep more details in the shadows, but I'm happy with the overall look and feel of the scene. Let's move on to the next one. I enable print and the look. Go to the balance DCTL, go to the lab DCTL, increase the exposure slider, add a bit of subtractive saturation, lowering saturation, and now in lab I'm adjusting the temp and the tint slider. Go back to the balance, and now I'm increasing contrast, add a bit of tone compression, lowering the shadows, and that's it. Time is up. Here's the Rec 09 version, and here's our grade. I'm not that happy with the look. I'm missing the cold tone of the stones a bit, and I think the skin tones are too saturated, but that's the game in 1 minute, and sometimes you fail. Let's move on to the next one. Let's review the last 10 grades. This one is my favorite. and my personal worst grade is this one here. And that's it, 100 grades, 100 minutes. Limiting the time forces you to focus on what really matters in an image: exposure, contrast, balance, and a clear direction. If you enjoyed the experiment, maybe try it yourself. Set a timer to 1 minute and grade a shot. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and I see you in the next video.